This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You get free shipping and a lot more with your subscription. You get free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video. You get free games and a free Twitch subscription, which you can use to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, and you get a whole lot more. We've got quick links to our favorite features, these and a whole lot more. We've got a 30-day free trial if you're not already subscribed, and if you don't know what to get your loved one, a Prime subscription is a great gift idea. We've got a link for that as well, and all of that can be found by going to f5live.tv/prime. All right, we were talking about Roku and Google just a few minutes ago in regards to Google Stadia and why Roku may not be the next platform of choice for the company. And a lot of it has to do with what has happened over the last 8 months or so. Earlier in the year, contract negotiations went a little sideways between Google and Roku over the YouTube TV app. YouTube TV is the live platform, your cable replacement platform by YouTube. The contract negotiations broke down, and Roku pulled the YouTube TV app from their platform. So Google instead moved it into the primary YouTube app and said, haha, we've got you, forgetting that their contract on the YouTube primary app was up this week. And so both companies had hoped to call the other one's bluff and have them back down, similar to we've all been watching cable and heard your local NBC or Fox affiliate beg you to call your cable company, or you might lose all of your Universal networks. Google tried to do the same thing here and call Roku's bluff. In the end, the good news is, hours before the primary YouTube app was scheduled to be pulled from the platform, an agreement was reached, and YouTube and YouTube TV are safe under a multi-year deal. Now, what does multi-year mean? It could be 2, it could be 12. Neither company is talking. We'll see what happens here in the near future. Maybe we'll get more information as to what the deals here are. A lot of the disagreement came about over the way that search and discovery are done on more modern Roku platforms. YouTube TV had been given its own content row in discovery, and voice search was able to be done just within YouTube TV. With Roku 5, maybe, or 6, possibly 6, whatever the next one is, I think. Things are going to change, and Google wasn't interested in that. So that was where a lot of the battle came from. But just like Apple, Roku puts a lot of control over its platform. We know that HBO Max was months late to the party on Roku after it was available everywhere else, because of a similar kind of disagreement over royalties and things like that, which you can imagine YouTube TV also wanted to work on, was their royalty structure, because Roku wants a piece of the action if it's used on their platform, even if payments are taken off platform, which is different than Apple's current operating process, right? We've talked a lot. Netflix doesn't allow you to sign up on an Apple device anymore. You have to sign up on the website and then sign in on your Apple device because they don't want to give 30% to Apple. Well, Roku takes a percentage anyway, which might be why we won't see Google Stadia coming to Roku next, because there'd be quite a negotiation there. But what do you think, Abram? How close do you actually think Roku was to pulling the most recognized media brand on the platform, on the planet?
Very close. Very close. Because
I agree.
I'm sure they would have done it because it wasn't on Roku for quite a while. I think some older Roku boxes still don't have the YouTube app. I know I have, I think, an older box that can't do YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise. What has been?
I think you've got to be Roku 4 to have YouTube today. and 4 and 5 are the two modern OSs, I think.
So one thing that's interesting to me is just realizing how much money Roku makes off of content distribution deals. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at this, and I've always thought of Roku as a hardware company, or hardware and software company. They make the software and license it to TCL, and they make the software for their boxes. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I think of Roku as a huge convenience, but not something, as the best of its breed, but not something that is required in the marketplace, because there's smart TVs that have similar software built into the TV. And then there's competition from the likes of the Fire Stick.
Sure.
And I guess, I don't know, and Chromecast, right?
Yeah.
So with all of that, you would think that they wouldn't be in such a strong market position to be kicking major content off of their platform, because you want, people are not going to buy the box if they can't get the platform that they want.
Sure.
Nevertheless, Roku has used that kind of brinksmanship very effectively. So,
because they are, as much as it's surprising, they are the number one smart TV platform.
Now, I mean, there's some justice in that, because as far as I'm concerned, their UI and their interface is the best. Mm-hmm. I would much prefer to have Roku than to have to deal with Samsung's built-in UI, which is on every TV I've used it, very sluggish and annoying. And I like it better than the Fire Stick or than the Chromecast. But nevertheless, it's not like if they suddenly stopped carrying a platform that was important to me, I would totally switch. But so in Q3 of 2021, the company had $680 million in revenue, which is 51% more than they had the year before, but still $3 million below forecast. So apparently people were disappointed. Like, you grew 51%, but it wasn't enough. I'll never understand the stock market. You can grow tremendously and your stock can lose value, or you could shrink, but you shrink less than people thought you would, and that's okay.
Somebody could die in a TV show while near your product, and your stock price can go down 10%, because that definitely happened this week.
That's what happened with Peloton.
Absolutely,
it went down 10% from the guy in Sex and the City.
Yes.
I hope nobody ever says that the market is rational. Anyway, but what's interesting here in looking at the results is that the amount that they make selling devices was of that 680 million was only 97.4 million. Mm-hmm. So platform revenue, which I think means like the licensing part of it,
some of it,
582 million.
Some of it's content, and some of it is licensing Roku to TCL and Hitachi and companies like that. But
they're making a lot of money off of these deals. So there's a lot at stake for them.
Absolutely.
I get it. And the interesting thing is, while I think of them as a device company, like, oh, I spent $40 on your device, and I'm not going to need another one for many years. They think of themselves as a platform that is a viewership platform, and they've been able to successfully market themselves that way to the stock market and to content providers,
and to other hardware manufacturers, right? They've managed to convince TCL and Hitachi and a couple other companies that they're the way to go, and it's worked out for everybody so far.
I mean, I have to buy a new TV soon, and I'm probably going to get a TCL so that the Roku is built in, so I don't have to attach a box. So, like, that is a selling point for me.
For those who are watching, the reason I keep pointing off camera is there is a TCL Roku television that I can almost touch. It's currently unplugged. Otherwise, I was going to turn it on and see what the current version of the operating system was while we were talking.
But so over the course of the quarter, they announced that their 18 billion hours of streaming took place on a Roku box, with active accounts averaging 3.5 streaming hours a day. So Roku is acting like a cable provider.
Yes.
Except, ironically, the relationship between Roku and the content providers seems to be opposite what the relationship is between cable providers and content providers with cable networks, because usually it's the cable network that's paying for the content to be present rather than the content provider paying the cable network to be present.
True.
Right?
True.
I mean, it's funny,
but in that case, you're paying you as the person watching are paying your cable company, who's then paying the content companies, as opposed to in this relationship you're paying the content companies and not paying anything to Roku. So I guess it makes sense that the funnel
right.
is
They don't make their money. They don't make their money unless you can view it on Roku.
Right.
However, I have to say Roku is really relying on the idea that once people get a Roku box, they won't switch.
Right.
Whereas I could completely see a situation where there's a channel that people want, it's not on Roku, and they say, okay, I'm just going to get a Fire Stick for $25 and make the switch.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And in that same vein, I'm now, as of this moment, I am now surprised that LG hasn't gotten into the set-top box business with WebOS, since they are now the only non-Google platform. With Stadia, there are things that are there that you can't do other places. I'm now officially a little surprised that they're not in that space, because you can't do Stadia on a Roku. Maybe you don't want a Google TV with Chromecast with Google TV is what it's called. Maybe you don't want one of those. So anyway, that's a little unrelated, but yeah, it would be really easy to swap to another platform for most people, even if it's built in for $25 or $30 to get a Chromecast with Google TV, which is the current model, or a Fire Stick. Just move on.
Yeah, but I guess good for Roku. In my experience, their UI and their products are a cut above the others.
Yeah,
but and I guess good for Roku users that we can still get YouTube, because I really
YouTube
like
TV.
being able to watch YouTube on my Roku box.
For sure. And so we don't know if we're going to see the standalone YouTube TV app come back to the platform. My guess is yes, just to kind of separate those two brands out a little bit, and to keep the interfaces for both platforms a little simpler. We'll probably see the original YouTube TV app come back in pretty short order. But yeah, we'll see with time. But at least we have at least 2 years before we see this kind of pressure again, since it is a multi-year deal. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.